Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is Take It to the Hizzy Fantasy Football, TITTH number 219. I'm your host, Justin Bruni. Happy Sunday. I've got Stephen Hammond with me and Jeremy Popes. Good morning, sirs. How are we doing?
What's going on, everybody?
I'm doing swell. Sunday morning. A little bump. No football, but, you know.
Yeah. Little bummy, no football. No basketball either right now. We got a little hiatus here. Just, good old-fashioned hockey, taking care of things, getting us done, getting us our sporting needs. Blood's itching. But here we are. We're back to talk some football. Super Bowls last week. Solid, good finish to the year. But we're in the offseason now. A lot of stuff to talk about. A lot of news already flaring off. How are you guys doing in Dynasty? You guys making a lot of moves? You trying to do some buying, some selling? Anything big to report recently?
No, I've been kind of laying off for now, letting some of this news develop and see where people might be going.
Sure.
So nothing yet, but I'm sure I'll be here in the next week, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I've been kind of flying under the radar. I mean, I've been getting some offers, but I also kind of feel the same way. A lot of the pieces that I'd want to buy are kind of still in that limbo range, and it's just kind of. Maybe I'll just wait it out. I'll pay a little bit more. I got a lot invested in the rookies, so I'm kind of just waiting for that rookie draft. I always feel like rookie drafts are the best time to make those moves. So trying to acquire some of these guys now is harder. Come draft day, someone's going to want that 110, and you can probably go out and get, like a Hopkins, a Michael Thomas, somebody like that. So I usually try to wait a little bit. So.
Yeah, I can definitely sympathize with that. A lot of people are making moves in a couple of my leagues, but most of them are pretty quiet. People getting their drops in now that we've had the transition of the IR players and stuff like that. I did make a trade. I got Joe Burrow for Patty Mahomes, and I also took back a couple of first rounders with that. That's pretty much it as far as like any transactions go. I feel pretty good about that. That was in a 20-team league, and Patrick Mahomes was my fifth pick last season. So getting back two first round picks for, in a 20-round draft, for come rookies, I felt pretty good about that. And then, of course, you got Joe Burrow on top, so not too bad. We got Sage Alvarez in the chat. Morning, Sage. Hope you're doing well, sir. Happy Sunday. Everybody else, we're going to be diving into some news talk here. Stuff that's just, rolling in through recent news. First up, we've got Michael Gallup. Looks like they're saying they're going to try to prioritize him, the Dallas Cowboys, to re-sign him, but probably going to need to take a team-friendly deal. You got CeeDee Lamb needing to be re-signed next season. You have Amari Cooper, who is already taken up a pretty big portion of the bill there for the Dallas Cowboys salary cap. What do you guys think? Should Gallup take a team-friendly deal, or should he pursue his options elsewhere? I prefer elsewhere. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think he should go elsewhere. I think there's going to be plenty of teams that'll offer him at least, he's seen himself in the wide receiver 3 position for a while over there in Dallas. So I kind of feel like you'll at least find a team that's willing to make him their 2, possibly even some that are really needy can be 1. And money-wise, obviously, that's going to trump what Dallas can offer because they got plenty of huge contracts on the books. So, yeah, I like him to go elsewhere. It'll be interesting with this injury he's got.
Any teams in particular that you like for a landing spot?
So I think the Raiders, they're obviously going to be looking for a wide receiver to pair with Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller. Also Falcons. We don't know what's going on with Calvin Ridley right now, and that could be kind of a way to get out from underneath him. Maybe move him, and you have a easier replacement.
What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking that I totally forgot about the Raiders. So I really like that, Steve. I do. You would definitely get that wide receiver 1 type role there. But yeah, I think he should move on. I don't know if he will. I feel like the injury, how many teams are going to nowadays, that injury is not terrible. Most people do bounce back pretty good from it, but I just feel like, I don't know how many teams are going to actually offer him like top dollar, but we saw it. I mean, Kenny Galladay got a big contract last year. So off of his hip injury and stuff like that. So I could see it. I had Green Bay, Minnesota. I feel like are two good spots. I'm staying in that NFC area. Obviously, if Rodgers leaves, Green Bay gets less enticing. But I think Minnesota could be nice if Thielen does move on, or however they handle Adam Thielen there. I think pairing him with Justin Jefferson, they kind of have a little bit of a different skill set there. I think that could still be a pretty good option for him.
Yeah, if they moved on from Thielen, that would make a lot of sense. I'd like that. The two teams that I had circled here were Arizona and the Raiders as well. But I do have some other teams listed that just have that need. I could see Chicago being involved. I could see the Browns being involved. They just moved on from Odell Beckham Jr. I think Detroit needs another solid number 2. You get to go, play indoors in there. Indianapolis, very similar situation. I'm not sure what's going to happen with T.Y. Hilton. So I like a lot of those teams. What do you think about like the contenders though, like teams like Buffalo or Kansas City? Do you think he would fit in well with either of those teams?
Yeah, I think he could fit in there. I don't know how much they're going to – I mean, it really depends on where his market for a contract is. If he's willing to sign a 1-year prove-it deal coming off this injury to try and get that massive one, then, yeah, I think Chiefs would be in play. They could really use another wide receiver in that offense. So, yeah, I think they could. It really just depends on his value.
All right. What do you think, Jeremy? Good fit for Buffalo or no?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like him in Buffalo. I think for me, it's going to come down to like, what does Gallup want? Does he want to stay on a team that's been competitive? Like Dallas has been competitive. They've been a playoff team there. They're kind of there. They're one of those fringe teams that you're like, okay, they could be really good, but then they always disappoint. But like, I feel like, what does he want? Does he want the money? If he chases the money, he's going to go to one of these other teams that we mentioned. They have a bigger cap availability, so they'll be able to pay him more. But if he wants to win, I mean, I think the Bills are going to be interesting for wide receivers this year. I do think that they take one either in the draft or go free agent. I do think they might move on from Cole Beasley. I mean, they can save like $6 million. So like there might be a void here. Sanders is going to be gone. He's up there. Beasley might be gone. I mean, you're really left with Diggs and Gabe Davis and then a ton of unproven guys. And even Gabe Davis, you could argue, I mean, he's had his moments, but hasn't really like proven that he can handle a full workload for a whole season. So like, there could be a fit there for a free agent wide receiver, and Gallup could be that. I feel like he's not going to draw. He might draw good money, but I just don't know. It's going to be that, like Steve said, it's going to be how much does he draw as his contract.
Well, I feel like Gallup is going to wind up being, like second or third place prize to teams that went out and targeted players like Devontae Adams, like Chris Godwin, and didn't come home with anything. And they, said, hey, consolation prize, Michael Gallup's not too bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like some of those bigger teams, like the top of the league teams, could be in that pool of teams that could be landing him. So I think you should move on. I don't think a team-friendly deal is in his best interest long-term. So this past season, he was 77th at his position. In 2020, he was 38th, and in 2019, he was 22nd. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here for him in this coming season. All right, next up, we've got Michael Thomas. Looks like he's going to be coming back with the Saints. Doesn't sound like he's readily available for trade. Maybe that's just a kind of a coach organizational type of talk. Maybe they just want to make it seem like everything's hunky dory, and when they make a trade offer, nothing seems too suspicious. But it seems like for the time being, he's going to stay in New Orleans. What would be a good quarterback option to really elevate his level of play this year if he's going to be their premier guy?
That's tough. I really think you could make anyone. Jimmy G could work, gets the ball out quick on those slants that Mike Thomas likes to run. Jameis Winston, I'm still fine with Jameis Winston. We didn't get to see him run that last year. When Jameis was in, I thought he was an adequate quarterback, so I think you could see it there. Or someone we'll even touch on later in the show, Malik Willis. They fell in love with him at the Senior Bowl. And yeah, it'd be some new life. And new coach, you get to see a whole new offense for Michael Thomas. Could be interesting.
Yeah, I like all those. I think Winston's a big one. I agree with Steve. Like, we didn't really get to see. Yeah, and everybody argues, it was so. I've heard people say like, it was a fail with trying out Winston, and I think it wasn't. I think he looked good and decent in those first couple games. It was just an injury. That's what derailed Jameis Winston there. Right. So I could see them still trying to bring him back. I feel like it's going to be a bridge guy. I agree with Steve. I think they might draft somebody in the first round. It might be like a Malik Willis, a Sam Howell, somebody like that. If it's Howell, he's a little bit more ready. But some of these other guys aren't really ready to play necessarily right away. So I could see a 1-year bridge, whether that's Jimmy G, whether that's Ryan Fitzpatrick, whether it's Carson Wentz, whether it's someone like that. I feel like that's who's going to be there. But yeah, I think it. I don't really think it matters.
It sounds like we're all on the same page that they're not going to go out and get like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, and they're probably also not targeting Deshaun Watson, right? So it sounds like we all agree there. But what I think is, very a low key or underrated option here is let's go back to Teddy Bridgewater. Let's go back to the well. He was 5-1 with him a couple of seasons ago, and I've got Michael Thomas's numbers during that stretch. It was from week 2 to week 7. Michael Thomas 52 catches on 65 targets. 640 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, and an 80% catch rate. Seems like solid bridge option to me. I mean, go with the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Winston, he looked good, but I don't know. I feel like Winston's going to get courted by a lot of teams potentially this offseason here, and it may be difficult for him to come back on a friendly deal because they still have Taysom Hill on the books for a bunch of cash, and I don't see his contract very movable. So if we're going with a bridge guy, I would like Teddy for sure. But any of those options would be fine. Garoppolo, like you mentioned, Fitzpatrick would be kind of cool to be honest with you. I kind of like the idea of New Orleans and Ryan Fitzpatrick. That would be tasty. Any of those options would be fine. The best situation of any of those bridge quarterbacks, are you going to go out and get yourself some Michael Thomas this year?
Well, I got some Michael Thomas still in some of my dynasties, so I'm going to hold on to him. I like Michael Thomas, though. Last we saw him play, I mean, he's the number 1 wide receiver, one of the top-end number 1 wide receivers. So I've seen a lot of, like, slander on Twitter, I feel like, with obviously him sitting out, kind of playing a bummer in fantasy seasons. But, no, I'm still all in on Michael Thomas. Obviously, it hurts a little, no Breeze anymore. But I think he's talented enough to push past that.
Yeah, I think I know the joke's all out there that he's like slant Mike and all that stuff. But I mean, ultimately, you think about it, it's a very effective route. It's a high percentage route. And for me in a PPR league, I mean, Michael
helps me out
still. Yeah. I don't care if he catches 100 slants all year. I don't care. That's 100 points for me. So I don't really, I still value Michael Thomas enough to go get him. I'm definitely buying him. I also think that so many people are with the slander on Twitter and all of that so many people are down on him. He's fairly cheap. He's definitely affordable. And like Steve said, I mean, the last time he played, he was the top wide receiver in fantasy football. So I'm in on it.
Yeah, you're just going to get him at much better value this year. Obviously, you're not going to be trying to take him in the first couple of rounds of your draft. If you get him in rounds 4 or 5 in a dynasty startup, I feel like you're playing with plus money there. So I feel good about that.
I did one. It was a best ball dynasty draft this month, and I got him in the 9th round.
Woo! Yeah, you're playing with house money. Not bad there, and especially in best ball because you don't even need him to play the whole season. If he plays half the season, 9th round, you're in perfect situation there.
Definitely.
All right. Next up, looks like Carson Wentz is not going to be coming back to the Colts. The Athletics' Bob Kravitz says it's virtually impossible for them to bring him back. Where do you guys believe he's going to be playing next season?
I'll defer to Jeremy here real quick. I got to think. I don't know. This is a tough one.
Yeah,
what do you think, Jeremy?
For me, I have pretty much any of those open places. I really still like him in Indy. I wish they would kind of hold on to him. But obviously, if they're moving on, I think Denver, Washington, any of these teams that Pittsburgh, I feel like a team with a better offensive line probably fits him the best. He does have that mobility and he is a bigger quarterback, but we have seen him struggle when he is pressured. So for me, I think Denver seems like a good fit. I know that they're going to try and lure Rodgers in, but if they don't, I feel like Wentz could kind of be. I mean, I don't know if you can argue he's much better than Teddy Bridgewater. I feel like Bridgewater is probably more accurate and takes care of the ball better, but Wentz can stretch the field a little bit more. So I feel like Denver seems like a good spot just because of the offensive line and the build. Also Washington's offensive line isn't terrible. I think they draft another one, but I think they're going to still need Denver and Washington. I think possibly draft a quarterback, but they're going to possibly need that bridge. Wentz could definitely do that for them.
Well, Denver I have at the top of the list for pretty much all these quarterbacks that are available, like Denver, Tampa Bay, definitely should be 1 and 2. I feel like right now for what's available. Tampa Bay also has a really good situation for the offensive line for Carson Wentz. Denver, obviously we know all the receivers, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, even KJ Hamler still there. It looks like they're going to be moving on from Melvin Gordon, but they have Javonte Williams, those 2 big tight ends, Albert O, Noah Fant. Like, it's a very good situation for any quarterback. Tampa, also a very good situation. Obviously, you kind of want to see what they're doing with the running back position. Are they bringing back Godwin? Maybe Gronk stays, maybe he doesn't. But you still have a really good offensive line. You still have Mike Evans. I feel like both of those would be really good fits. DC, we're going to be talking about them in a minute. It sounds like they're like all in for like a top tier quarterback. If they don't bring one of those home, Carson Wentz could be that consolation prize, similar to, like that Michael Gallup talk that we had. If you don't bring home a top receiver, maybe you wind up with Gallup. So I like those 3 options, Denver, Tampa, and DC. Good offensive lines, like we mentioned, with all 3. And realistically, that's what you're going to need at the end of the day for Carson Wentz. Like, I was thinking about Pittsburgh, but then like right out the window, like developing young offensive line, I don't think it's a good fit. What do you think about these options, Steve, or anywhere else that you can think of?
I think Washington really is a good one. I think they're going to go out for Russell Wilson, probably fall short. And then, hey, here's Carson Wentz. And he's better than what they've had, in the past 2 years at least. I think Commanders could easily take him.
Show Alex Smith a little bit more respect. All right, calm down.
Oh yeah, okay. It's tough. It was tough with that leg injury. Leg injury was ugly enough that I'm just trying to block all of that out of my mind.
Never. You always remember. Always remember. I wake up and say 3 Alex Smiths every morning. Yeah, I mean, the situation in DC is interesting. I honestly, just for my shares of Terry McLaurin, I want Carson Wentz nowhere near him. And I just feel like I don't know, that feels like a disaster waiting to happen. Again, it sounds like they're going at like all in for a top quarterback. Maybe they're in that Russell Wilson market. Maybe I guess we can just move right on to them because they're our next topic. The Washington Commanders, previously known as the football team, previously known as the Redskins, they are now in win now mode. So very interesting information coming out saying that pretty much everybody's on the table, including Chase Young, Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, Logan Thomas. They're ready to go after one of these big quarterbacks. I feel like this information is signaling that we're all in for Deshaun Watson because I feel like that's what Houston wants is like they want starters. They don't necessarily want draft picks. They got plenty of those. They've been bad. We need some players. We need some guys that can ball. I feel like Lovie Smith's ears are perking up based off this information. So who could you see them actually going after other than like Russ Wilson? Like, do you think they're involved with Aaron Rodgers here? Do you think that they try to move Chase Young for Russ, for Deshaun Watson? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think they should be in for Deshaun Watson. You're kind of getting damaged goods there. You could probably get at a little bit cheaper of a value than say you're getting Russell Wilson to try and pry him away from Seattle. I just don't get this move. If you're putting all that on the table, what are you going to have left when you do get that quarterback? If you're willing to give up an elite edge rusher that you have, obviously your number one wideout in Terry McLaurin, then who's he going to be throwing to? I could see a Deshaun Watson there. I feel like him and Ron Rivera would be a great pairing. Carson Wentz, the more we talk about it, I think that is really where they might end up.
What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think if it's any of the big names, it's going to be Deshaun Watson. It makes the most sense on the basis of, okay, so if you are giving up Chase Young, you're giving up Terry McLaurin, you're giving up these younger players that are future stars to help you win down the road, but also win now. The only one that makes sense now to get something back would be Deshaun Watson. He's young enough that he's still a win now. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. If his off the field stuff is cleared up or whatever happens there, you have him for years, 10 years plus, if you can keep him there signed. You know what I mean? Versus dumping all of this youth for a guy that's Aaron Rodgers who might retire in a year. You have Russell Wilson who's up there in age. I mean, he probably still has a little bit more in his tank, but you're not getting the length and longevity that you would with Deshaun Watson. So it makes sense. But I also agree with Steve. Like, I wouldn't move Terry McLaurin. I think they could dispose of Chase Young if they really wanted to. That defensive line is pretty good without him. Definitely not as good. I mean, Chase Young is a phenomenal talent, and it doesn't like, I'm not saying he should be bad, but you saw them still get quarterback pressure without him this year after the injury. So I could see where they're saying, hey, we're willing to move him because they don't have that quarterback. And how long, you know what I mean? How long can you go with Chase Young being the face of that franchise, even say, as an edge rusher, and where does it get you? You know, look at Pittsburgh for an instance. You know, you had TJ Watt tore up the league this year. How far did they really get? You know, they couldn't move the ball. And that's the situation that Washington's in. They have a championship caliber defense, but you go to the offensive side and they just can't move the ball. They face up against another decently good defense and they're toast. Some of these better quarterbacks nowadays can manipulate those better defenses and still win football games. So I don't know. I could see moving Chase Young or another one along that offensive line or defensive line to try and get somebody like that. But I don't agree with moving Terry McLaurin because, like Steve said, you get Deshaun Watson now. Who's he throwing to? I mean, they could go out and draft somebody this year.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for me to buy into selling all these pieces, or really any one of them, for Deshaun Watson alone, just because he could still miss half the season. He could be suspended 8 or 6 games, and if you're giving up Chase Young for something like that, you know, not even McLaurin or Gibson, I feel like that's just too much. You know, yeah, he could play with you for the next 8 years, the rest of the decade, but are you willing to sacrifice essentially this season just for him? You know, and to me, I feel like they have the weapons to win now. So I guess, would you rather have the Commanders with a guy like Garoppolo and Wentz with the team as is, or would you have them with Deshaun Watson without, let's say, Chase Young? Like, what's a better mold going forward?
I would take Deshaun Watson. I think those other ones aren't a huge improvement of, you know, the Taylor Heineke's that they've had in years past. So I think you got to do a little bit more than that to get your team over the hump. It sucks that you have to trade, you know, Chase Young, but to Jeremy's point, you do still have Sweat there. You have Jonathan Allen, like De'Aaron Payne. Like you do, you have enough on your defense that you could probably – quarterback's the most important position in football. We all know that. So I think I would like Deshaun there a little bit more for success.
What do you think, Jeremy?
The only route I would stay with one of those other guys is if they love, say, Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis. None of them are Deshaun Watson level at this point. They maybe could become that. Malik Willis could possibly have that ceiling. Right. But that would be the only route. But you've been there before. You know, Dwayne Haskins, like the pedigree there has been there. They've drafted pretty decent high mid-range quarterbacks, and it hasn't worked for them. So I just feel like that's their backup plan. You know, like I think they want Deshaun Watson. They want Russell Wilson. They want to get that quarterback position and go from there. You know, that's something they haven't had for years, and that's what they want. So I feel like the only way they bring any of those guys back is because, okay, this failed. But to your point too, I think that's the part where even Steve said, oh, you might get a discount on Deshaun Watson. I think Houston's already made it clear they're not giving him away for a discount. They're like, we're going to wait. We'll sit here. We'll hold him. He can sit there all they want. And we'll wait until the legal clears because we know what he's worth. He's a top 5 quarterback if he isn't suspended, if all that legal clears and he's good to go. I mean, he's worth a ton. So,
multiple first round starters.
I think that's
absolutely.
Houston, look at what Stafford brought from LA. I mean, it worked for him. They won the Super Bowl. But like, I mean, he's going to bring a pretty penny, and I think that's where they're at. I think Houston's willing to wait him out, and I think they've showed it last year. You know, I mean, they said, okay, we'll let him sit there all year.
As they should, because they have a breadwinner right there as far as what's going to get them back in a trade. So yeah, absolutely. Moving on to Garoppolo, who's also been linked to the Commanders. Where do we think that he's going to play? Definitely getting moved this offseason, moving over to Trey Lance. DC makes some sense, but there's a lot of teams out there that need a quarterback. What do you think, Steve?
I think if the Buccaneers can't really find a guy for the future, I think he could go there. They obviously you need weapons around Jimmy Garoppolo to get the best out of Jimmy Garoppolo, and they have them if they re-sign, obviously, Godwin. You got tight ends and O.J. Howard if he stays. You got Mike Evans there. So I think he could do it there. And Jimmy G is a very serviceable quarterback. He'll be a starter next year. He's had great runs in the playoffs multiple years. You just have to provide the environment around him to really get all of his, skills and everything out of him. So yeah, I think Buccaneers right now are who I think he's going to end up with, following Tom Brady's footsteps once again.
Makes sense. They're similar. They're similar quarterbacks. Not that Garoppolo's as good as Tom Brady, but similar play style.
Right.
I like Tampa and I like Indy. Those are the two places that I have him. It's another guy that needs a really good offensive line as well as a run game to kind of just make him. He's essentially a game manager, a very good one. At the point of where, like Steve said, he needs those weapons. So I think Tampa Bay makes a good sense too, even if they don't bring Godwin back, because Evans is still there. They're late enough in the draft and their team's good enough all around that at 27 they could take a wide receiver. You could get somebody a little bit later, like a David Bell, George Pickens, someone like that might land there and give you that second piece next to Evans. You also still have Tyler Johnson there. He's serviceable. So I could see that in Tampa Bay. I like that a lot. And then like Indy, they have the run game. He just would need to be able to run. And I mean, it would stink for Pittman. He wouldn't have as many field stretching. I feel like his arms probably isn't as strong as Wentz, but I think he would be good enough to make Indy a good contending team. He'll take care of the ball. They had another receiver there, and I think Indy could be a good spot for him.
Yeah, I like Indy as well. I like Indy and Pittsburgh the most. That's because I think that Tampa, Denver, and who is the other one with a good offensive line? Oh, and DC, because he's already linked to DC, like we talked about. I think those would be the best options. I don't think he'll land in the best options. I feel like he'll be someone's consolation prize like Pittsburgh or Indy because they weren't able to get a bigger name, and he's a safe quarterback. He doesn't make many mistakes. I mean, obviously you look at the turnovers and they don't look good, but the run game and typically the flow of the offense have really always protected him in San Francisco. He looked good in New England. He put up decent numbers there. But again, he had a very good system in place that would protect him, right? So I feel like that's something that he wants to target. Indy and Pittsburgh, I think, would be perfectly fine for that. We saw what Najee Harris can do, collecting a ton of targets out of the backfield. Yeah, he's probably going to take a lot of licks in Pittsburgh. Would definitely be hit less, in Indy, but Indy may just go and get somebody else. He may not be their guy. So I like either of those two locations. I don't think he's going to make as big a splash in free agency, or not in free agency, but in a trade for like landing spot as people think. Tampa would be awesome, but I don't know if it happens. I don't know what that trade what it would look like, what they would give up for him. Movable contract, pretty favorable, but I don't know if he's going to be Tampa's guy. I feel like they're going to try to get somebody bigger because they're kind of in a win now mode. Like they have a lot of pieces there. I feel like they'll be aggressive in free agency with the cap that they do have. So I think they're going to want somebody that can, potentially bring him back to the promised land. Speaking of returning to the promised land, is Marcus Mariota going to be a starter this year? He's a free agent. This is like the consolation prize of the consolation prize here. What do you guys think?
I feel like if he's going to be a starter somewhere, he should be. I think he's shown enough in the games that he's played. But in fact, the only team that might make him a starter would be like Texans. This kind of has like Tyrod Taylor when they signed him vibes. But yeah, I don't see where else I would think he'd start at.
What do you think, Jeremy?
I mean, it's a possibility. I'm leaning towards the no side. I feel like Houston kind of makes a little bit of sense. I prefer them not to. I think Houston they might ride out Davis Mills. I think he showed enough to earn a chance to see at least the beginning of the season. I think he'll get signed somewhere and he might be like a camp, like to push a quarterback, and he might win it. You could see him anywhere that, like we had mentioned, all these guys don't go anywhere. You could see him come in as like a person to push the other quarterbacks that they have. Like they end up going with a quarterback by committee, sort of like, okay, whoever wins the job gets it. And I feel like you'll see a lot of those teams who like draft a rookie quarterback. We'll say Denver drafts Malik Willis. Well, they might bring in Mariota and be like, okay, whoever wins the job starts week one and then takes over, like a Justin Fields, like a Baker Mayfield, kind of something like that. Right, I feel like that would be the only route to him becoming a starter somewhere.
I really like him. Call me crazy, but I really like him to land in Carolina. I saw the tape from the game he started, well, not started in, but filled in 2 years ago against the Chargers. I don't know, like what he can provide on the field, it just speaks to me like, he should be in these formations with the Panthers. He can run the triple option. The passing play still looks good. And that game against the Chargers where Carr left, Carr's been really healthy the past 2 seasons. He pulled a groin in a game and Mariota came in, rushed 9 times for 88 yards and a touchdown. Like, he looks really good. Who would you guys prefer more so if as your starter? Like, let's say you do draft a rookie, kind of very similar situation to Jeremy just mentioned, but who would you rather have, Marcus Mariota or Teddy Bridgewater? Because I feel like Mariota, from what I've seen recently, looks better.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that, but it's also, I feel like, just the sample size that we've seen of the 2 players. We've got to see, obviously, a lot more Teddy Bridgewater with the Broncos than we've seen of Mariota outside of the gadget formations he would get in with the Raiders. Right. But I guess maybe that's kind of, I'm willing to go with that unknown and roll the dice. And there's some people, who would rather play it safe. You're the Saints. You mentioned it earlier. You have him. You have Mike Thomas. Maybe you go with Teddy Bridgewater because he can get those passes and run your offense efficiently. But yeah, I like Mariota of the 2.
I'm just still in awe thinking about how I didn't think about Carolina. Because I'm sitting here and you're saying that, and I'm like, just makes – I know, but it just makes so much sense. Like, I guess Mariota would be perfect because they have so many other needs. They're not going to really probably draft one of these guys, and they can get talent around him. And he's obviously he's at least Sam Darnold level.
Well, take a look at their last 3 quarterbacks. He would give Darnold, Newton, and Bridgewater. Like, Mariota's like all of those guys in one.
Yeah, like he would give more mobility than Sam Darnold has. And you could run, like you said, those triple options. I feel like he would fit Matt Rule's offense pretty well. Yeah. So that's actually a pretty nice spot. But yeah, I'll take Mariota. The upside's just a little bit higher there. I know it's an unknown, but in the situation that he's going to get a starting role, I'll take him over Bridgewater. Bridgewater, we know what he is. He's safe. He's a reliable quarterback, but he isn't he doesn't give you those. He has some mobility, but he doesn't give you what Mariota could.
No, definitely not on a design situation. And, Mariota playing this year, I felt was kind of like indicative of, his performance in camp, in practice. Like, he wasn't getting those design run play calls at all last season. The only time he played, or not this last season, but 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he played one game. And it was the game that Derrick Carr pulled his groin, and that's it. This next season, this past year, it was from the get-go. Like they were using him in week 1 with designed runs. He had a rushing touchdown on maybe week 5 or something like that. I don't know. He threw 2 passes all season. Like, they didn't use him as a passer whatsoever in those situations. I think he had 1 completion for 4 yards this year. Nothing crazy. But if you go back and you watch the tape and you just see like their commitment to him and implementing him in more plays, it kind of signifies like, hey, like, we're trying to get eyes on this guy. This guy deserves a job. And I don't think he's going to come back as Carr's backup. So I feel like it's very on the button, that situation that Jeremy mentioned. Bring him into camp, let him push a young guy. If he wins the job, cool. If not, maybe he's playing by week 3 or 4 and he winds up on our fantasy teams at some point. Definitely somebody that deserves to be playing still, for sure. All right, next up, we got Russ Wilson potentially on the move. Is he staying or going? Seems like he wants to find greener pastures, but this was the same situation last offseason. Do you guys see him staying in Seattle or playing elsewhere?
I mean, we've seen this smoke come from his camp once before, and it turned out to be just that, just smoke. I think he stays. He's going to be in Seattle at the beginning of the year. Yeah, if he does move, I do not like him going to Tampa. Obviously, like, on paper, it has all the workings. Like, they already have a team in place, and he kind of just supersedes Tom and just is a starter. But they're going to have some interesting – they went all in this last year. They're going to have to jump through some hoops to have any flexibility with their roster. Maybe not this year, but in upcoming years. A lot of their defensive players in 2 years are going to have to re-sign Devin White, who's going to demand big money. I mean, they're going to have a difficult time coming up because they sold out this past year to win it. So I do not like him in Tampa, though.
Okay. All right. What do you think, Jeremy?
I think he stays. I just don't see him playing anywhere else than Seattle. I also don't think – I know a lot was off on like, oh, Seattle needs to rebuild almost. But like I think Seattle's still going to be a competitor this year. I mean, they need a running back, and outside of that, I mean, their defense is a little, but like, I feel like he doesn't want to leave. I think it's a lot of just smoke, and I don't think Seattle wants him to go. We've talked about it this whole entire time. Like, what's the most important position to have? And it's quarterback. And he's not old enough that it's like, oh, okay, let's just move on and let's rebuild. I don't think Seattle's at that point yet. I think Seattle still wants to be a competitive team and is still kind of in that fringe win now mode. So I don't see him moving him unless somebody comes up with a really big package, and Tampa's not going to do it. And I don't really know who else would. I mean, maybe Washington, but
that was going to be my next question is what kind of deal, what level of deal gets it done? Like, does Chase Young, Taylor Heineke, and a first round pick get it done?
I don't think so.
No?
Because, I mean, yeah, Chase Young was what, 1-1? So you figure that's the top pick. So if you're going to value him that way, so you're getting the first overall from last year?
2 years.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
And then say they give them their first round again this year, that's 11. And then Taylor Heineke is nothing.
Well, just got to throw in a piece.
Like, he's just like the guy to fill in, I guess, for Russ Wilson. But
maybe Curtis Samuel. I don't know.
You're admitting like a full rebuild at that point, because you're taking a defensive player and then you're probably drafting a quarterback at 11. And to me, you're just going with a full rebuild. And this isn't the quarterback class to really do that, in my opinion. So
You're telling me you don't trust Geno Smith anymore? The hell?
But he was a great story. I loved it. I was there for it. But as a NFL franchise, I'm not like, yo, Geno Smith, here's the keys. Have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean they could move on from him and then go out and sign one of these guys. Like they could, what if they did a Wentz and Russ swap? Something like that. I don't think Russ is going to work out in Tampa because they just don't have the other pieces yet. I don't think it makes sense for him to do that when right now all they have is Mike Evans, Ronald Jones, UFA. Same thing for Leonard Fournette. Same thing for Chris Godwin. Got to really see how it plays out down there before you're just like, all right, yeah, let's move corner to corner of the country here and make a vastly change in my career. I don't know if that would be it. I would like a Wentz and Wilson swap, though. I think that could work out for both sides. I think Indy has a pretty good amount of cap, don't they?
I'm not 100% sure.
I believe so. I can't think of too many people on that team that have huge contracts.
I feel like they could pull off that swap, but I don't know what else they would wind up giving up to make it happen. Definitely not San Fran, but I feel like they need to either get a piece that's going to help them win right now, like go out and try to finagle Calvin Ridley onto their roster to keep Russ Wilson, because that division's super competitive right now. They're behind the eight ball for sure in comparison to the rest of the teams. So they need to level up.
Unless Kyler Murray doesn't return.
Yeah, but I feel like that's kind of a similar smoke screen. Like, dude just wants his money. He wasn't happy with like what's going on there. So he just is going to say, hey, loud and clear, this is bad right now. Fix it or I'm going to be gone.
To me, I feel like that division isn't as secure as everybody also thinks. Because to me, I think Trey Lance might not be as good as everybody thinks. I think Trey Lance is good. I think he's got that mobility. But what if Trey Lance is a big step back from Jimmy Garoppolo? What if he turns the ball over more? Like what if the 49ers aren't as good as we think they're going to be? Mm-hmm. And like there's a little bit of a transition year there. What if Arizona doesn't? I mean, what if he leaves? You know what I mean? I still feel like, and then the Rams are the Rams. So like I feel like they're probably still in it.
Right. Well, like, if Kyler Murray is going to be available,
there.
Right? If he's going to be available, then he would be in the same like palette or tier as Deshaun Watson for like the Commanders to be involved in making a big splash, because he's another guy that you could ride out for this decade, for the next 8 years. So he would definitely be in play for there. It's just another situation. I just don't see it. I feel like it's very similar to this Russ Wilson thing where it's just a bunch of noise for nothing. Well, not maybe for nothing, for millions for Kyler Murray because he's going to want his extension. But I feel like they need to go out, also make some moves in free agency, get a Leonard Fournette, get maybe even a Chris Godwin or a Michael Gallup, get him another reliable piece, because D-Hop goes down. What are you left with? You know what I mean? Like AJ Green not getting it done. I like Rondell Moore to take a step forward, but still I feel like you need that layer of depth on offense. You just look at the two teams playing in the Super Bowl. Bengals had a bunch of depth at receiver. The Rams went out and got Odell Beckham because they lost depth at the position. You know what I mean? They did the same thing at running back when Cam Akers went down with Sony Michel. So we're just constantly seeing you have to have deep pockets to make these runs. All right, next up we got Derek Carr. He's getting a new coach. It looks like he's going to be getting an extension soon here, somewhere around the $40 million per year range, Kirk Cousins territory. Are you guys buying or selling Derek Carr this offseason?
I'm buying him. I think back to what I would have done to have Derek Carr last year. I might be looking, at having a championship rather than sitting in fourth place that I said, So right. I think so. And him being paired up with Josh McDaniels leaves me intrigued, to say the least. I just think he's been not very, very good, but, kind of in that Kirk Cousins tier of player for a while now. He's still only 30. I'd like some shares of Derek Carr.
Secret, I don't have to buy him. I have him everywhere. I've been a huge Derek Carr truther all throughout. I'm not Derek Carr is going to be the QB1 this year. He's great, but he's been a steady quarterback too in super flex leagues for years, right. And his value's just been so good. And now it's finally this year, everybody was like, oh, wow, because he had a really good start to the season. Everybody's like, oh, wow, he's actually pretty good when he's been pretty good. It's just right. So for me, I'm in on buying Derek Carr. Like Steve said, he's still only 30. He's probably going to get the extension. Josh McDaniels, I think, is going to do wonders. Not necessarily if he even doesn't need to get that much better for me. I still feel like people like Derek Carr, but they're okay with moving on from him. So going out there and being able to acquire him isn't as hard as we probably think. So I'm in for buying him. I'm not buying him as my top quarterback, but if I need that second quarterback, like Steve said, you're a team that you have one of those top tier guys in your second super flex spot. You were rolling Taylor Heineke. You were rolling someone else like that. Just go out and try and get Derek Carr and see if you can to one of maybe a team that needs to rebuild in your fantasy leagues. And maybe you can get Derek Carr for a decent price.
I am all in on Derek Carr as well. During this past season, I had Jameis Winston get hurt. He was my third string quarterback on my super flex team. So I had Josh Allen and Ryan Tannehill ahead of him. In this draft, I also grabbed Deshaun Watson. I traded Deshaun Watson and a first round pick for Derek Carr. That's how committed I am to him. I had someone else offer me a top 5 pick in this upcoming rookie draft for Derek Carr, and he was my backup. And I said no. But that's also because that person has no utility at quarterback. I was just giving them literally a starter. They had guys like you had mentioned, Taylor Heineke, Andy Dalton. I don't even know who else they had. It was just a bad situation. It's I'm not giving you a quarterback. You don't. No. You go find your rebuild. So I'm all in on them. I think that they're going to make a splash in free agency. I think they're going to get a Calvin Ridley or Devontae Adams or a Juju. I think that there's a lot of room for opportunity here. He passed for 4,800 yards with Zay Jones, Hunter Renfrow, and Brian Edwards. Darren Waller, too, obviously. He's there. But, man, if you add one of these pieces in there, if you added in Devontae Adams to Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller, give me over 4,500 yards again. Check. Give me over 30 passing yards. Check. Or 30 passing touchdowns. Check. He's going to be a hot commodity this season. Come, the actual redraft start of the year, in mid-August, he's going to be, in that top 5, top 7 conversation when it's all said and done. Because they're either going to add in a big weapon. There's going to be a bunch of camp talk around him. He's going to be a big thing this year.
I'd love to see him back with Devontae. That'd be great.
Oh, that'd be maddening for the league. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to like it, but yeah, it would be causing a lot of problems around the NFL. All right, next up we got Allen Robinson moving on from the Bears. Best landing spot for A-Rob.
I would say maybe the Eagles. They kind of get to put Jalen. Yeah, I mean, I don't love it for him, but that's where I feel like he ends up. They kind of get they could put the Jalen Reagor, all that talk to bed if they get a true number 1 there.
Did Alshon Jeffrey win a Super Bowl with them? Did he win a Super Bowl with the Eagles?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. I was going to say call Alshon Jeffrey and see how that worked out, but I feel like he won that Super Bowl not doing much. I don't remember.
I want to say he might have even had a touchdown, or maybe it was the round before. But yeah, I think Allen Robinson could go there. I think you could also see some of those other ones that I said. If they don't get Devontae in Oakland, that'd be a great person for. You have him on the boundary. You have Hunter Renfrow in the slot, and then Waller at tight end. That'd be great. Yeah, I'm curious what Allen Robinson wants. He's played on plenty of losers in his time. He's had two tastes. He had a taste with the Jaguars, and he's had a taste with the Bears. But does he want to go win a ring, or does he want that massive contract?
Right.
So that'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
What do you think, Jeremy?
I think he chases a ring. I don't think the market's going to be there. I think this year is going to really put a bitter taste on what Allen Robinson can do and is at. He's at that weird age for wide receivers. And with who's out there, you know what I mean? We mentioned Godwin. We mentioned Devontae Adams might be on the market. We mentioned Calvin Ridley's available, Gallup. There's a lot of decent
Juju, Mike Williams,
good free agent wide receivers. So for me, I feel like he's one of those consolation prizes at wide receiver at the moment. I also don't think he's at the point where he can be a top receiver anymore. I think he's going to want to go somewhere, be that second option. I didn't see it last year. You know what I mean? You didn't see it. It could have been Matt Nagy.
How could you?
Yeah,
I know. And that's the hard argument, but we've seen it from him before there. Do you know what I mean? Then you can go back to that argument. He's always been good, even with bad Bears teams. So in Jacksonville, he was good. And then this year, something happened and he just was very, very bad. So was it just that he just lost that connection with Nagy and just didn't care? Or was it that he hit that cliff? So I feel like there's a lot of question marks around Allen Robinson. Did he just is he at that point that he just isn't as good as he used to be? Or was it coaching? So I feel like he's in this weird conundrum. So for me, I have him going to a contender. If say Green Bay keeps Rodgers and they keep Adams, I think him landing there could be a good option on a team friendly contract. Minnesota, another one where he's not asked to be that guy. Buffalo is an interesting one for me too. He comes over, he gets a team friendly deal. They move on from Beasley or somebody like that. And he kind of gets that role aside from Stephon Diggs. You get a team like that, maybe Tampa, depending because Tampa's in a cap situation, they might be able to get him at a discount, just somewhere that he kind of goes in and is that second option, but still has a team that's contending to win something. He's gotten his money over the years. I feel like he's not going to chase that at this point in his career. He's looking for someone who's going to win. KC could be an option if he's willing to take a team friendly deal and be a 1A or just the second option. So
yeah. So you've listed most of the teams that I have here, but the two that I have circled are Kansas City and Green Bay. And Green Bay, because when given the opportunity, Allen Robinson will choose salty over any other flavor every single time. When something's not going right, he lets you know about it. In Jacksonville, when it was good, he was happy. You knew it. When it was going bad, you saw him leave, and he told you why. Same thing with Chicago. And, dude, the situation last year was the peak of the worst between him and Nagy and the play calling. Nagy didn't speak with Allen Robinson the entire offseason. Didn't send a text message. He didn't say anything. The dude that filled in for Gruden wrote everybody a poem after they lost to the Bengals. You know what I mean? What the hell? It's different in Chicago this past season. It was a much different circumstance for every other league or every other team in the league. You had a carousel at quarterback. You had one different form of attack every different week between the quarterbacks, between Foles, Dalton, and Fields. It was just a complete mess. I feel like Allen Robinson will be back in top 10, top 12 wide receiver territory the next season as long as he gets an arm. So whether it's Patrick Mahomes, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, whether it's going to somewhere Seattle if they want to get a cheap wide receiver or somebody on a friendly deal, he's going to be playing with an arm. I'm with you, Jeremy. I think he does chase a ring. So I'm hoping that it is KC. It could be Tampa, if they wind up getting a quarterback before they wind up signing him, just kind of saying hey, we moved on from Godwin. You can be 1B to Mike Evans. I think there's a lot of good situations like that. But yeah, man, this year in Chicago is bad. That's not a great sample piece to take from for Allen Robinson. I think he's going to be in wide receiver 1 territory again this year.
If he gets paid big, that just shows that the rest of the league knows that Matt Nagy's an idiot and just didn't
True.
know how to use him for this entire year. So that'll be kind of indicative of that. But interesting.
Yeah. God bless him if he can. Go get that money, sir. All right. Next up, we've got some dynasty rookie duel. So we're up in our dynasty rookie drafts this year. Which way are you going? First up, we've got quarterback position. We're looking at Kenny Pickett versus Malik Willis. A lot of Malik Willis talk going on recently. Burned down the Senior Bowl, looking really good. What do you guys think?
I think I would probably have to go Malik Willis from what I heard. I think he will be more of a project. So it's someone that you're probably going to draft on your team, stash for a little bit. If that's not what your team needs and you need to go out, I think Kenny Pickett could really, be a plug and play first day starter. So I think I like the upside more of Malik Willis, but current value, I think Kenny Pickett holds it a bit higher.
Okay. What do you think, Jeremy?
For me, the quarterbacks really break down to landing spots. I feel like none of them really set themselves apart. Malik Willis obviously has the highest ceiling, but he also is very, very raw. He is going to need some developmental time. He could get ruined if you try to plug him in and play him right away. I feel like you need to let him sit, kind of get a little bit behind him, kind of the Trey Lance feel. Like he's good. He's got all the tools. He's got all the traits, but let's not ruin him. So for me, I'm personally taking Kenny Pickett. I think Kenny Pickett has a very good upside. I wrote about him at SGPN. I just think that he's the top quarterback. I think he has the tools to be in a pro style offense. He has shown a very big jump. He definitely developed way quicker in his senior year. I mean, he just exploded. So for me, I've seen that progression where he can be coached. He has the traits. He's very coachable. So I like what Kenny Pickett brings. And I just think where he's going to land, for me, I feel like Pickett's going to be in Washington or Denver or one of those situations because I don't think those guys lure a quarterback. I think they're going to have to draft one. And if he lands in Denver, that to me just seems like a perfect fit, a good offensive line, a good run game, and he has the weapons. I think that would be a really good pick. So I think I would take Pickett over Willis personally. So,
yeah, I think it really just depends on how your dynasty team adds up. If you have guys that are top 5 quarterbacks in the league, if you have Josh Allen and, let's say, I don't know, another 30-year-old quarterback, someone who's not going anywhere anytime soon, I might lean more so to Malik Willis because I don't want to dump my assets just so that I can start Kenny Pickett. You know what I mean? I don't want to get rid of Derek Carr just because in 2 years Kenny Pickett's going to be starting every game for me in fantasy or even maybe this season. You know what I mean? So I feel like if you're in a situation where you can hold off for another couple of seasons, you want to go after the project and the guy with the higher ceiling in Willis. Because, he's probably going to get the Trey Lance treatment from somebody. And maybe he even comes in, and fills in for an injury, sometime throughout the season or in the second half of the year after he's gotten a lot of time in camp, after he's gone through, some of those growing pains. I think he's going to be definitely electric in preseason. We'll probably see a lot of them then. But I do feel like he will wind up being a project. So it's really just where your team is at. If I'm looking at my rosters, Malik Willis is probably the pick because I might get him a little bit better value because there are going to be teams in your dynasty draft that are hurting for quarterbacks, guys that lost, Big Ben or Tom Brady, where they literally just need a starter and they will have to attack that position. They can't draft Malik Willis because, more than likely he's not going to be a week 1 starter. There are some teams where I could see where Kenny Pickett could be that guy. But between the two, if I'm an actual NFL team, I'd probably go with Malik Willis if I can, if I can maybe survive this offseason, get a bridge quarterback like some of the guys that we had mentioned, whether it's Garoppolo getting another guy that's just, waiting to take over the job or an elder statesman, maybe like a Teddy Bridgewater. So I think those would be good situations for him. Definitely not going to be someone that's a week one guy. All right, next one up, big one here. We got Kenny Walker versus Isaiah Spiller. Which way you guys going?
I think as a prospect, I like Isaiah Spiller more. I liked Kenneth Walker a lot when he was at Michigan State, but I like the frame that Isaiah Spiller has. I think it leads him to, he's going to be what I think he'll be a really good pass blocker. Kenneth Walker has a little bit more burst in comparison to Spiller, but I just think for where these guys are going, I think I'd probably take a flyer on Spiller first. Neither of these two really jump off the page for me, thinking that they're going to be, bell cow backs in the NFL. At least in the near future, I don't see that. So yeah, I think I lean Isaiah Spiller landing spots for either one. I'm thinking like Bills, maybe they look to get someone. Giants, depending on what they're going to do with Saquon. Yeah, I like both of those for landing spots for these guys.
Okay. What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's going to be it's the same thing. I feel like a lot of these rookies are landing spots. These two are in that same tier. I think they're both right after Breece Hall. So for me, I'm just kind of looking at it as in who lands where. So for me, like the two spots I really like Kenneth Walker would be like Philadelphia and Seattle. I think
not my Gainwell shares. Don't do it to me.
Well, now this is where I'm going to go with it. So Kenneth Walker, he does have limited use in the passing game. Do I think he can do it? Yes, he could be used as a passing back, but they could option it and run a running back by committee, which is so popular in the NFL nowadays. They can move on from Miles Sanders. Walker can be their Miles Sanders power type back that kind of has that speed, that elusiveness, and gets the job done on first and second down. And they could slide Kenny Walker, who they already drafted, in for those third down roles and kind of get that whole running back by committee. Is it a great thing for him? No, because he wouldn't get that bell cow role. But I do think that that's a good spot for him. And I feel like Philadelphia could be looking to do that just because I feel like they might be over with Miles Sanders. As far as Seattle goes, he would get a full workload, and I feel like Seattle needs a running back. I don't know if they take Breece Hall early enough, so he might be that consolation prize and fall back in and get a lead role. If that's the case, I'm all in on Kenny Walker ahead of Isaiah Spiller. But for me, I think if Isaiah Spiller falls in, for example, the one place I really want to see him is Arizona. He has that pass-catching pedigree, but he does have a decent-sized frame. I think he can be a lead back. He does have good power. He has great leg drive. So for me, he can be that lead guy, and he's a combination of what they wanted. They've never had a back that can do it all. You know, they brought James Conner in to complement Chase Edmonds. Now, if they just let both of them walk, bring in Kenny Walker or bring in Isaiah Spiller, they save a ton of cap. They get what they want. They have a guy that can work inside the 20-yard line, as well as he already has a ton of pass-catching pedigree. So for me, I feel like that could be a move.
Is Edmonds an unrestricted free agent?
I do.
I know Connor is.
I think Edmonds.
I know Connor is, but I thought Edmonds was still there. So I actually had Spiller and Arizona circled together. And I have Walker circled with Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay has no Ron Jones, no Leonard Fournette. Now, maybe they bring one of those guys back, but I don't know. Like between the two, I feel like Walker has more upside to be an every down back. Spiller, I feel, is going to be more like a third down back because of that ability, and he's going to work his way into getting more touches. Now, that's like early on, right? Like for the longevity of their career, I think Spiller can develop into an every down back for sure, but because he does have that bigger size, he doesn't have like the same amount of density as Kenneth Walker, and that's why I feel safer with Walker because he'll get that red zone usage, he'll get more usage on first and second down, but has that pass catching upside. Whereas Spiller is going to have to come in and kind of develop to get those early down touches. Has that great frame for it. Definitely, gives me that Alvin Kamara look, but a little bit bigger, a little bit taller. He's like 6'1", 215 or so. With Kenny Walker, though, if he landed in Tampa, and he got that job, I feel like I'd be grabbing every bit of him if I could. But like Jeremy said, landing spot's going to matter. If you saw Isaiah Spiller go to Kansas City to supplant CEH, like we'd be all driving to get him twice if we could. So
and Chase Edmonds is a free agent.
So yeah, Arizona would be a really good spot for him. I don't think Arizona would be a great spot for Walker. I'd like to see them. Yeah, like I said, I circled Spiller in Arizona, so I'd like to see him go get him, and then maybe bring back James Conner as well. I think that would be a much better tandem than Conner and Edmonds for sure. So I lean slightly to Walker. They're both very close, like you said, after Breece Hall. That's why I mentioned him. Hall seems like the clear first running back off the board. All right, now we got receivers up here. I think I know where Steve is going with this one. Garrett Wilson versus Drake London. Steve, let's hear it.
Yeah, this one's easy. This is Garrett Wilson all day over Drake London. He can create separation, has a full route tree, sure-handed. I mean, really, when the first time I watched Garrett Wilson play, you could see Michael Thomas in his game. Just with how he plays. Drake London, biggest issue is he couldn't create separation in college. He can't do it. If you can't do it in college, you're not going to be able to do it in the NFL. And he's not good enough at going up and getting all these contested catches. I really do not like Drake London at all. all in on Garrett Wilson. Probably should be the first wide receiver taken off the board.
Dang, first one off the board. What do you think, Jeremy?
I agree. I'm kind of sitting here wondering, like, I haven't really dove into running, like, the wide receivers, like, really looking at them. Like, obviously, I watch enough college football to know who these guys are and all that stuff. But, like, Drake London, I like him, but, like, I don't get the allure. Like, it feels like a lot of people like Drake London more than Treylon Burks on, like, the NFL draft side of it, which doesn't really make sense to me. Both of them don't really separate a ton, but Burks seems to have more physical talent than Drake London does. And the way the NFL is going, it's all these not necessarily shorter, but like those 6 foot guys that create separation, you know, like Diggs, Waddle, Chase, like all these guys that create that separation at that speed is where the NFL's going. So it's just kind of weird how high a lot of people have London, even on the NFL side. But I agree with Steve. It's Garrett Wilson, hands down, ahead of Drake London at this point. Steve hit on the nail with the separation. Garrett Wilson creates a ton of separation and arguably is the best wide receiver in this class. So for me, I really like it. I really want him in Atlanta, honestly. And the reason I say that is if they do decide to move on from Calvin Ridley, I think he's an immediate replacement to what Calvin Ridley does. They both do things well. They're both good route runners. They're both I believe they're similar sizes. And like he would be almost a direct replacement to Calvin Ridley, and they could move Calvin Ridley, get some more capital, build a better team around that team to get ready for a rookie quarterback when they can move on from Matt Ryan. So I like him there. I think if he's there, I'm all in on Garrett Wilson. And I honestly like London in Philadelphia. He gives a compliment to Devontae Smith. I know it's not great, but like he's the complete opposite of what Devontae Smith is. And then they kind of get that opposite skill sets. And I just feel like for some reason he is projected pretty high, and Philadelphia's in that range of 16, 17, where I feel like he might come off the board. So I just feel like that might be his spot.
I agree with you guys. I like Wilson over London, and I just feel that's because he can be implanted into a lineup anywhere in the league. Like his options are pretty much endless because of his skill set. Anybody can use a player like him. Whereas with London, he's a 6'5", big body guy. I feel like his game can translate into like what we're seeing from Michael Pittman, another USC guy. I've seen him draw comparisons to Mike Evans as well. I don't think we see that type of production in year one. I do think that we could see it like years down the road, like a year 2, year 3 type of situation. So right out of the gate, I would like Wilson a little bit more, but I do think that believe that Drake London can, improve into a player like that or build onto that level of production. But I think he's going to need the right spot. Like he can't go to the Jets and you expect like that level of production where you're going to see him as a rookie, go over 1,200 receiving yards. I think he has it. Like the tape that I've seen on him, I have seen him create separation. I've seen him make some big plays. Obviously they're going to be more like highlight reels. I'm not going through like fast forward through every USC game and stuff like that. But from what I've seen from him, I feel like he can be that type of player. I feel like when I was doing the comps, I was looking at like Garrett Wilson as Chris Godwin and Drake London as Mike Evans. Like I don't know if I necessarily saw like Mike Thomas in there, but I definitely saw that separation, speed across the middle, just being able to rope-a-dope guys, on those comeback routes. So I see a lot of upside from him. Got Matty Daddy shouting out the dream team here. Good stuff. Good stuff. We got one more up here, and we're going to be heading out, enjoying our first Sundays without football. We've got Trey McBride versus George Pickens. I couldn't find another comp as far as like, there's no other tight end getting drafted where Trey McBride is, but George Pickens is. So what do you guys think here?
I'd probably go George Pickens. I thought George Pickens was going to actually be one of the top wide receivers taken in this draft going into the college season. So seeing him here, I think I just like Pickens. He's got good size. I think he's definitely a project, but I think you could turn him into a pretty good wide receiver. Probably, start off as a wide receiver 3, see him get up to a wide receiver 2.
Agreed.
I'm just like, what's the Jalen Weidemeyer like disrespect? Everybody hates him. I don't get it. I mean, the kid, he's a very talented tight end, and the love and clamoring for Trey McBride is earned. I mean, he had a good year. There's a lot more physical good attributes to me than in Jalen Weidemeyer, but that's for a different day. These two, Trey McBride, I really like him in Indy. I think that he fits their role. He's a physical tight end, and he can run block and go out and catch the passes. So for me, I like him there. And George Pickens is another guy. I really like George Pickens in Detroit for some reason. I just feel like where they have a lot of picks and where they would fall out, I think Pickens could be one of their options. And like Steve said, I like Pickens' upside. I thought he was going to be one of the top guys this year. Last April, I had mentioned him in a Devy thing or a Devy article, and same thing. I thought he was the top guy coming out. I just thought he was going to make a big jump, and unfortunately, he had the injury, and we didn't get to see that. So for me, I think George Pickens is a good deal in fantasy drafts this offseason. So for me, I'm going to take him just shooting the upside. I think Trey McBride's good. I just don't think the upside is going to be there that Pickens could give you long term. So for me, I'm sticking with Pickens in this situation.
It really comes down to, do you need a tight end? If they're being drafted, like, the reason why they're being compared here is that they're going around like the same ADP in dynasty startups. That's why they're both going like between, I don't know, 124 and 130, somewhere in that range, right? So wanted to put somebody that was close with McBride on the draft board. With Pickens, I would love a landing spot like Dallas if they're going to move on from Michael Gallup. I feel like he could fill in well and actually get onto the field. I feel like there's a lot of teams that would be just perfectly fine drafting him, but he may not be used. Like he just may not get that usage. So I'd like to see him go in and fill in a hole somewhere. For Trey McBride, Arizona, Carolina, both have big needs. Pair him alongside someone experienced like Zach Ertz, or send him to Carolina where he's just going to get a ton of playing time, a lot of opportunity. Wouldn't hate either of those options. Between the two, if you're starting, like nobody at tight end, go grab Trey McBride. Like if you have a bunch of depth at receiver, you don't need to grab Pickens. If I feel like everybody always has depth at receiver. That's why I say that. And I feel like Pickens is probably going to be in like your second or third round of like your rookie draft still. So if you don't need that position, then maybe you target Trey McBride. On most of my teams, I have like a steady starter at tight end and like a flyer already, behind them, like an Irv Smith, hurt this year. I have him behind like a Mark Andrews in one league. Like I don't really need a tight end there, right? But another league, I have like just Dallas Goedert, and that's it. So I feel a little pressure there, right? So and somewhere in a league like that, I would look to target him. Really just based all on need. I don't think either or any team out there is just going to be like, oh, I could use a wide receiver and I could use a tight end. What will I do here? So Trey McBride led his team in total yards, running backs, receivers, tight ends, everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, I did not know that. That was wild.
I mean, it's Colorado.
Yeah. I was telling these guys before we got started, I had like Jeremy Shockey kind of vibes. Like, seems like
I get it.
Seems like he's gonna be wearing a bandana under that helmet. I'm just saying.
I mean, that would. Yeah, I get it. I do like Trey McBride. I don't know. I'm still on it. I said, it might change in a week. Like once I get to tight ends and like really start to break both of them down, he might be, as much as everybody loves him, he might be that clear head of Jalen Weidemeyer. But I liked Weidemeyer coming into the season. I think so. For me, I'm just kind of, and tight ends, I always take the discount. Like for me last year, I loved Kyle Pitts, great, phenomenal talent, generational. He's great, and I'm not saying he's not. But for me, I was like, just take Pat Freiermuth in your second round, save the draft, take a running back, wide receiver in the first round, get Freiermuth, and look at how that turned out. I mean, it's still not career wise, but like he was still a steady starter for a while.
Yeah.
So
and he's going to be.
Yeah, it just seems, I don't know. For me, tight ends, I'm always like, unless I have the top guy, it's just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, yeah, I mean, we still have the combine to come up. We still have free agency, so there's a lot to unfold. But we're going to be here for it. We'll be back next Sunday and every Sunday going forward here. We got to talk about something, long off season here. It's if anything, it's a season of seasons. And the off season, the off season in the NFL is pretty much like the equivalent to any MLB action, which you don't even have anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize they were in a lockout till like 3 days ago. Like I had no clue that was even a thing.
Yeah, I saw some. I mean, I don't watch it enough to know, and I just I saw an article the one day saying like, oh, since you're not going to have MLB this year, like watch something else. Like they had they're promoting a different baseball, like a lower level baseball league, and I'm like, oh. I didn't know. I remember hearing rumors that they were leading to a lockout, but I didn't know what actually happened. So.
Extreme Baseball League.
Yeah, it was something. I don't know. I think it was I think it was like it might have been college baseball. I don't know. It was something. It was vague. I scrolled over it. I'm not.
They won't break up the fights when they happen.
Yeah, I played baseball. I played baseball for 13 years when I was younger. So I can't sit there and watch it. It just
I hear you.
I sit down and watch golf, so I don't know why. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't do it. I can't do it. I mean, when the Cubs are good, I watch them. When things are rolling, I'm in front of the tube for sure. I can watch 9 innings. But do you watch 9 innings of like AAA baseball ever? No, you don't. No one does that. So why would I? When my team is terrible, why the hell would I? How am I going to do it? You know what I mean? Like. All right. Well, this has been a long one, but a good one. Take care. Be well. Steve, Jeremy, let everybody know where they can find you on Twitter.
Yeah, find me on Twitter at Stephen Hammond.
Jeremy, you can find on Twitter at PopesFFH.
What are you working on these days, Jeremy?
Just some stuff over at SGPN, really, at the moment, as well as rookie threads. I'm sure Dynasty stuff's going to start flowing out of SGPN, I think, next month or so. So.
Right on. Good stuff. Hopefully everybody's having
USFL. I know we're pushing a lot of that stuff too. So
I'll be sharing the shit out of your USFL content for sure. No problem. I'm here for it. Not going to participate. I'm gonna hold out for the XFL. You know, that's my.
I'm probably not going to get into the fantasy stuff. I just had too much going on, like as far as like having a USFL fantasy league. Right. But I'm gonna tune in. I'll watch a game.
I did AAF fantasy last year, before they folded, and I was into it. I was into it, but then they folded. So I need to make sure your league is going to be, withstanding the test of the trials and tribulations of no one watching your game. Yeah. All right, get over it.
Yeah,
just degenerates like us. That's about it. We're a small market. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, what am I saying? I'll probably be watching every game.
I mean, I'll definitely watch it, but it's got to be sustainable.
I say this now, and then someone will be like, USFL startup. Yeah, I'm in.
Oh yeah, no, you
can't say no.
$100. Yeah, fuck it. It's like, goddamn. What else am I gonna do? All right, everybody, take care. Be well. Be good. If you can't be good at it. We'll see you.